वेलकम विद्यार्थी मित्रांनो, आज आपण इयत्ता 11वीच्या इंग्रजीच्या पाठ्यपुस्तकातील सेक्शन 1 प्रोज सेक्शन मधील 1.3 द कॉल ऑफ द सॉइल असेंट ऑफ राईस मातीची साद तांदळाचा सुगंध या धड्याचं वाचन करणार आहोत आणि हा धडा आपल्या पाठ्यपुस्तकात पेज क्रमांक 25 वरती दिलेला आहे। विद्यार्थी मित्रांनो, आजच्या पाठाचं नाव आहे आपल्या 1.3 द कॉल ऑफ द सॉइल असेंट ऑफ राईस। याच्या अगोदरच्या व्हिडिओमध्ये आपण याच पाठाचे आइस ब्रेकर सविस्तरपणे पाहिलेले आहेत। जर तुम्ही ते आइस ब्रेकर पाहिलेले नसतील तर डिस्क्रिप्शनमध्ये त्याची लिंक देणार आहे, ती लिंक ओपन करा आणि तो व्हिडिओ पहा, म्हणजे तुमचे या धड्यावरचे संपूर्ण आइस ब्रेकर सुद्धा क्लिअर होऊन जातील। त्याच पद्धतीने त्याच व्हिडिओमध्ये या पाठाच्या लेखकांचा परिचय सुद्धा दिलेला आहे आणि आज आपण आपल्या पाठाचं वाचन करणार आहोत आणि आपल्या पाठाचं नाव आहे द कॉल ऑफ द सॉइल असेंट ऑफ राईस मातीची साद भाताचा सुगंध तांदळाचा सुगंध। द फर्स्ट क्रॉप इट वॉज एप्रिल 2004 I stood in the middle of the lush green field of moong green jam and looked around me. It was just before sunrise and the sky was turning bright orange. The ground was damp and the leaves were shining with dew. My bare feet were muddy as I walked around gingerly inspecting the plants. Around me were rows of chiku tree and below dense foliage of moong. At that point I could not have asked for anything more. The moong plants, not more than 2 feet tall, had green pods hanging out. The pods were not yet ripe and there was a light fuzz growing on them. There was still some time before the harvest. I felt exhilarated. I stood watching the sun rise above the towering trees across the fence and slowly made my way back to the house, a white structure in the middle of this greenery. I could not believe that I was the owner of this land and that I was looking at my first crop as a farmer. After I had paid the advance money for the land, I thought I would have some time to get familiar with farming. But Moru Dada, the broker who got us the land, had other ideas. He was keen that we plant moong at once. I was not prepared for this. I was still reading books and trying to figure out what we could sow and how we should go about. Moru Dada was quite firm. He said the season was right for sowing moong and the best seeds are available in Surat in the adjacent state of Gujarat. I made quick trip to Surat and bought around 10 kilograms of moong. Moru Dada rented his tractor to plow the land and quickly planted moong all over the place. A few days later, we were overjoyed to see tiny green leaves. I had never seen moong growing before and was thrilled at the sight. It was the same thrill I had felt as a young boy when I saw the first of the hibiscus I had planted bloom at the railway quarters in Ville Parle in Mumbai. I was grateful to have taken Moru's advice. The next thing Moru Dada wanted to do was spray some pesticide on the plants. He claimed that it would give higher yield. This was something we did not want to do. We were clear that we would not use any chemicals and tried to explain it to him. He reacted as if we had suggested harakiri. It took a lot of convincing to ensure that Moru Dada and his friends did not use any chemicals on the farm. They refused to understand how a crop could grow without sprays. Contrary to what everyone had told us, nature did her job and she needed no bribes to get the work done. Soon it was harvest time and we managed a respectable 300 kilograms. An awful lot of moog, and with a lot of confidence, now I was certain the land was fertile and that it was possible to grow crops without chemicals. It was a major moral booster. The scent of rice. The first year I was late for the rice sowing season and had to resort to growing the GR4 variety that was short term and recommended by the agricultural officers at Coast Guard. The next year we decided that we would start early and try to find some good traditional variety of rice to grow. We had read about traditional varieties of rice and knew that they did not require very high inputs of fertilizers. These varieties were also quite strong and resisted pests. We were sure that it was this type of rice that would grow well in our farm where we did not use any chemicals at all. Our previous year's experience and low yield had taught us a lesson, and we were sure we would not plant hybrids this year. In April 2005, we started to look for a good variety of traditional rice. It was one of our neighbors in the village, a businessman from Mumbai who owned land, was suggested that we plant a local scented variety of rice. Most of the farmers in and around the village of Pet had switched over to hybrids. The younger generation of farmers thought I was crazy to ask for the Deshi variety, as they called it. My regular visits to the villages around searching for a good traditional variety did not yield any results, and we were almost giving up hope. I decided to give it one last try and spoke to Baban's father and some other elders. After many meaningful conversations, they mentioned the name of Kasbai. Kasbai is a traditional long grain rice variety which has a distinct aroma, though much milder than Basmati. It is a long duration crop, and most of the older people remembered growing it years ago. But they all shook their heads when I asked them about the seeds and told me that it had disappeared. The tales of Kasbai made us more determined to get it. We decided that if we did manage to get some seeds, this would be a great rice to grow. I thought the government may know something about it. A visit to the agriculture officer was enlightening. He had not even heard of this rice variety. He said the villagers were taking me for a ride and there was no rice by this name. He rattled off the names of number of latest hybrids and even offered to give me some of them free of cost for a trial. Cursing myself for wasting time with him, I moved on to the next destination. This time it was the Adivasi Mahamandal at Kasa, which buys rice from the Adivasi villages on behalf of government. Kasbai did not figure in their files, a good indication why people did not grow it anymore. The market itself did not recognize the rice, so if you grew it you would not be able to sell it. However, the officer in charge here had more knowledge of rice and did remember Kasbai being sold to him a few years ago. So, when I in Dandivari, Baban and I started looking for Devu Handa and found a grieving old man wearing a cap sitting outside his house on a charpai. An ex-sarpanch of the village, he had acres of land, a huge house and large family. After exchanging the usual pleasantries, we came to the topic of Kasbai. The mere mention of Kasbai and Devhanda drifted into the past. His eyes turned dreamy, and with a tremble in his voice, he told us how the entire village at one time grew only Kasbai. He said, there was a time when people passing our village during lunchtime would be forced to stop and ask for meal. Such was the alluring aroma of Kasbai. The entire area would have this heady aroma hanging in air as all the houses cooked the same rice. Today, he said, no one grew Kasbai and everyone had shifted to growing the new hybrid varieties. He claimed he had to force himself to eat this rice that was so insipid. With the advent of irrigation, farmers were tempted to grow a second crop, and Kasbai, being a long duration rice, was replaced by the shorter duration hybrids so that the harvest could be done earlier. This ensured that the farmers could take up a second crop. I asked why he had shifted if he was so unhappy with the hybrids. No one forced him to, did they? He smiled and replied that their fields did not have fences, and once the harvest was over, the cattle were released into the fields. If my field alone has Kasbai, it will be a treat for the cattle, he explained. Sometimes we have to fall in the line with the community, he lamented. Hybrids need more water, fertilizers and pesticides. He said that yields were good initially but of late had reduced a lot. Besides, he said that each year they had to increase the quantity of urea and pesticide they used. It was as if the newer hybrids and an insatiable appetite for chemicals. He told us that even when there were flash floods in the 60s, Kasbai had stood its ground. He fondly remembered how the rice was still standing when they are returned to the village after the floods had receded. Such was the strength of rice, but look what we have done, he wrote. As he went on reminiscing about the rice, we gently guided him back to the reason for our visit, the Kasbai seeds. He was sure that there was not a single villager in this area who would have the seeds of Kasbai. According to him, the only people who still grew it were the Adivasi in a hamlet at the foothills of the mountains in the next village, Asavari. We bid farewell to Devhanda, who lovingly blessed us and said, Mahalakshmi, the local goddesses, will give you the seed of Kasbai. In Asavari village, we asked the Sarpanch to help us as we were not very fluent with the local dialect. He sent his assistant Jivan with us into the hills. After a half hour walk through thick vegetation, crossing numerous streams and ditches and scrambling over rocks and gravel, we reached the sleepy hamlet of Boripada. There were just two ramshackle houses in front of us, and we wondered if this was the right place. A wrinkled old woman sitting before one of the houses looked at us with curiosity. As we approached her, she signaled to Jivan to ask the curious question. She muttered in reply, and we looked at Jivan for a quick interpretation. He broke into a smile and informed us that she did have the rice and wanted to know who, where and why we wanted it. It was difficult to It was a difficult task to keep a straight face, and I had to control a strong desire to hug her. After searching for months, we had found the elusive Kasbai. We explained to her that we were from Peth nearby and we needed the seeds to grow it. We asked for 10 kilograms of rice. She muttered and scowled. Jivan interpreted that she had never heard of Peth village and also did not have the weighing scale. She was willing to give the seeds only in baskets. We asked for a single basket of rice and Jivan told us to pay her something. I handed over 100 rupees note, and for the first time in the last 10 minutes her face broke into smile. She nodded her head in approval. As we walked back against the fading sunset, leaving behind a smile old lady, I couldn't help but wonder that here, nestling in the foothills of an unknown mountain, away from the hustle and bustle of the road or the city, were the real people of India. These were the people who still held on to the rich biodiversity of our land, and no one even cared about them. They had never heard of hybrids, fertilizers, or pesticides. They just grew their rice, ate what they got. The old lady we met had probably never left Boripada. Her world was unspoilt by progress, and for once I was grateful for that. Written by Venkat Iyer.